There is a difference, my friends, between growing old and growing wise. Time will surely add years to your life, but only choice and courage will add wisdom to your soul. Emotional maturity is not about the number of birthdays you've counted nor the number of hands you've held. It is about learning when to speak and when to listen, when to stand firm and when to bend like the tree that yields but does not break. A lasting relationship is not built on passion alone. Passion is a fire, yes, but fire without care will consume all it touches. Emotional maturity is the hearthstone, the quiet place where that fire can live and warm instead of burn. Without it, love may spark brightly, but it flickers out in the winds of pride, impatience, and misunderstanding. To be mature in heart is to know that love is not ownership, it is stewardship. It is not about conquering another soul, but about tending to the garden of trust, of patience, of kindness. It is being able to say, I was wrong, and mean it. It is being able to forgive without keeping score. The immature heart demands, love me as I am and never ask me to change. But the mature heart whispers, I will grow so that our love can grow too. It understands that silence can be stronger than shouting, that respect is sweeter than victory, and that compromise is not weakness but wisdom. Emotional maturity is learning to carry your scars without asking another to bleed for them. It is healing your own wounds so that when you hold someone else, you do not cut them with your broken edges. It is realizing that love is not about perfection. It is about presence, about showing up again and again with gentleness even when life is heavy. And so, when two souls meet with maturity in their hearts, their love does not tremble at every storm. It becomes a shelter, not a battlefield. It becomes a place where two imperfect people can build something eternal, not because they never fall, but because they know how to rise together. There is a sacred strength in the heart that has learned how to wait, how to breathe, how to respond instead of react. Emotional maturity is that strength. It is not the absence of feelings, but the wisdom to guide them. It is not coldness or distance, but the fire that has been tamed enough to give warmth instead of destruction. Every relationship asks for this quiet strength, and every lasting bond depends on it. A child within us all wants to shout when hurt, to demand when needy, to slam doors when disappointed. But the grown soul within us knows that storms do not build bridges. A loud voice may win the argument, but it will often lose the heart. Emotional maturity is the steady hand that calms the trembling, the gentle word that soothes the fear, the patience that holds back until the moment is right. It is not the easy road, but it is the road that leads to peace. You see, love without maturity is like planting seeds without water. The soil may be rich, the sun may shine, but without the discipline to nurture, the promise of harvest fades into dust. Many people begin relationships with passion, with excitement, with dreams that stretch taller than the tallest tree. Yet when the winds come, as they always do, only maturity holds the roots firm. A relationship cannot be carried on laughter alone. It must be carried on understanding, on forgiveness, on patience deep enough to weather disappointment and begin again. To be emotionally mature is to know that your partner is not your enemy even when you disagree. It is to hold on to the truth that both of you are on the same side, even when you stand on opposite ends of a problem. Immaturity shouts, I must win, but maturity whispers, we must heal. Immaturity counts mistakes like coins, saving them up to spend in the next fight. But maturity lets go, because it knows that love is not an accountant, it is a gardener. It does not keep records of wrongs, it keeps watch for the first signs of new growth. And so, when two people meet with the courage to grow together, they create something rare. They build a love that is not shaken by every shadow. They learn that compromise is not defeat. It is the art of weaving two lives into one cloth without tearing the fabric. It is saying, I give a little, you give a little, and together we create something bigger than us both. Think for a moment of how many hearts have been broken not by the absence of love, but by the absence of patience. Words spoken too quickly, tempers flared too easily, wounds left to fester instead of being gently dressed. Emotional immaturity turns small cracks into canyons. But maturity, with its quiet hands, can mend the tear before it widens. It knows that healing is more important than proving who was right. A mature love understands that every person carries a history. We are all books filled with chapters of joy and sorrow, victories and mistakes. Emotional maturity reads with compassion, not judgment. It understands that to truly love someone is to embrace the story, not just the smile. It is to say, I see your scars, and I honor them, for they are part of what made you who you are. We live in a world that often confuses loudness with strength, quickness with intelligence, and stubbornness with passion. But emotional maturity is not loud, it is not rushed, it is not unbending. It is the soft voice that brings calm to chaos, the patience that waits for clarity, the wisdom that bends but does not break, and in a relationship, those qualities are the foundation stones. Love will ask you to stretch. Love will ask you to grow. Love will ask you to face parts of yourself that you would rather keep hidden. Immaturity will run from those demands. It will say, "This is too hard. This is too heavy." But maturity will stay. It will say, "Yes, this is hard, but you are worth it. We are worth it." Emotional maturity is not about never feeling anger, sadness, or jealousy. It is about not letting those feelings rule you. It is about choosing response over reaction. It is about saying, "I feel hurt, but I will not hurt you in return. I feel angry, but I will not let anger speak for me." This is strength greater than fists, greater than shouting. It is the strength of a heart that has learned discipline. So many times we confuse attraction for love, and love for commitment, and commitment for maturity. But attraction fades if it is not nurtured by respect. Love falters if it is not guided by patience. Commitment crumbles if it is not grounded in understanding. The thread that ties all these together is emotional maturity. Without it, love is fragile. With it, love becomes a force that time and trouble cannot break. Mature love does not hide from conflict. It does not pretend all is well when it is not. Instead, it faces conflict with honesty and humility. It says, "We may disagree, but I will not dishonor you. We may argue, but I will not wound you with words I cannot take back." Immaturity uses conflict as a weapon. Maturity uses conflict as a tool for growth. When two people love with maturity, they build not just a relationship, but a sanctuary. A place where both can rest, where both can be seen, where both can grow. It is not perfect, for no human bond is perfect, but it is steady. It is enduring. It is the kind of love that carries you through the winters and celebrates with you in the springs. There will be days when patience is tested, when tempers flare, when distance feels heavy. But emotional maturity teaches you to hold on, to breathe, to remember the bigger picture. It reminds you that relationships are not built in moments of perfection, but in the ways we handle imperfection. They are not measured by how often we smile, but by how often we forgive. The immature heart runs when the storms come. The mature heart digs deeper, holds tighter, and waits for the sun to rise again. It understands that storms are not the end of love, but the test of it. And if you can stand together through the storm, then the bond you share will be stronger than the winds that tried to break it. Let us not forget that emotional maturity is not something we arrive at all at once. It is not a medal we earn and then wear forever. It is a daily practice. It is choosing patience again and again. It is choosing kindness when frustration is easier. It is choosing forgiveness when resentment feels justified. It is the work of love, and it never ends. And yet, that work is not a burden. It is a blessing. For every time we choose maturity, we build a deeper connection. Every time we hold back harsh words, every time we listen instead of interrupting, every time we choose understanding over pride, we are laying stones in the foundation of a lasting relationship. It is true that love begins with a spark, but it endures with sacrifice. It begins with desire, but it grows with discipline. It begins with two hearts beating fast, but it lasts with two hearts beating steady. Emotional maturity is what steadies that rhythm, what turns fleeting passion into lasting devotion. When you love with maturity, you do not just hold another person's hand. You hold their dreams, their fears, their failures, their hopes. You hold their heart with gentleness, knowing how easily it can break. You hold their trust as a sacred thing, never to be played with, never to be betrayed. That is the kind of love that lasts. That is the kind of love that heals. And so we learn that emotional maturity is not only the foundation of lasting relationships, it is the very soil in which love grows strong. Without it, love is shallow. With it, love takes root, spreads deep, and bears fruit that nourishes not only the two who share it, but everyone touched by their bond. To walk in emotional maturity is to walk with open eyes and an open heart. It is to see beyond the surface of the one you love and to honor the layers within them. It is to know that beauty is not only in the smile, but in the tears that have been shed, in the battles fought quietly, in the wounds carried with dignity. When you love with maturity, you do not demand perfection. You do not insist on constant happiness. You understand that life is a blend of light and shadow, of laughter and pain, and that real love is willing to embrace both. There will be days when love feels effortless, like breathing, like sunshine falling through an open window. And there will be days when love feels like work, like heavy lifting, like walking uphill against the wind. Emotional maturity is what keeps you steady through both. It reminds you that joy is sweeter when it has been earned through struggle, that intimacy is deeper when it has been rebuilt after distance, that loyalty is more precious when it has been chosen in moments of temptation to quit. An immature heart treats relationships like games to be won. It counts points, tallies victories, and celebrates personal triumphs. But a mature heart knows that if one loses, both lose. That if one wins at the expense of the other, the love itself is diminished. Emotional maturity turns arguments into conversations, turns accusations into questions, turns distance into understanding. It asks not, "How can I prove I am right?" but, "How can we make this right together?" Consider how often relationships collapse not because love is absent, but because patience is absent. One unkind word repeated too often, one neglected moment left unhealed, one prideful silence held too long. These are small stones, yet over time they become walls that divide two hearts. Emotional maturity sees the wall being built and chooses to take it down brick by brick before it stands too high. It chooses to apologize even when it is hard. It chooses to listen even when it stings. It chooses to reach across the gap before the distance becomes too wide. To be emotionally mature is to recognize that love is not always about what you receive, but about what you give. It is about showing up not only in moments of joy, but also in moments of sorrow. It is about holding space for another's pain without needing to fix it, about offering comfort without demanding gratitude, about standing steady when the other falters. Immaturity asks, "What about me?" But maturity says, "I am here for you." This does not mean that maturity is self-erasure. It does not mean you lose yourself in the service of another. On the contrary, emotional maturity means you know yourself so well that you can give without fear of losing your identity. You set boundaries not out of anger, but out of respect. You speak your truth not to wound, but to invite understanding. You honor your own needs even as you honor the needs of another. In this way, love remains balanced, and both souls are nourished. There is a quiet grace in the person who has learned to master their emotions without denying them. They do not pretend to be unaffected, they do not bury their feelings in silence, they do not wear masks of indifference. Instead, they acknowledge their emotions, hold them gently, and then choose how to respond. This grace is rare, but when found it is powerful. In relationships, it becomes the anchor that keeps the bond steady when waves of misunderstanding crash. Love, after all, is not simply about two people finding each other. It is about two people choosing each other, again and again through trials and through triumphs. Emotional maturity is what gives you the strength to keep choosing, even when the road grows rough. It is what allows you to see the beauty in the ordinary, to cherish the quiet moments, to find joy in simply walking side by side. Imagine for a moment two people sitting in silence, not because they have nothing to say, but because their hearts are at ease in one another's presence. That is the fruit of maturity. It is the comfort of knowing you do not have to perform, you do not have to impress, you do not have to fight for space. You can simply be, and that being is enough. Such peace cannot be found where immaturity reigns, for immaturity demands constant attention, constant validation, constant assurance. But maturity creates rest, and yet maturity is not about dullness. It does not quench the fire of passion or silence the laughter of joy. On the contrary, it makes passion more enduring and joy more profound. For when love is rooted in maturity, it does not burn out quickly like dry wood, but glows steadily like embers that last through the night. It does not rise and fall like fleeting excitement, but deepens like wine that grows richer with age. There are those who believe that love should always feel easy, that the presence of conflict means the absence of destiny. But this is not so. Conflict is not the enemy of love, immaturity is. Conflict, when met with maturity, becomes a doorway to deeper understanding. It becomes the forge where trust is strengthened, where respect is tested, where commitment is proven. Without maturity, conflict becomes destruction. With maturity, conflict becomes transformation. Think of the oak tree that stands tall in the storm. It does not survive because the winds never blow. It survives because its roots run deep, because it bends without breaking, because it has grown strong over time. Emotional maturity is those roots in a relationship. It is what keeps you grounded when life's winds howl. It is what allows you to bend in compromise without breaking in resentment. It is what helps love stand tall through the passing seasons. It is easy to fall in love. It is not so easy to stay in love. Falling in love is the work of a moment, staying in love is the work of a lifetime. And that lifetime of work is carried by emotional maturity. It is in the daily choices, the choice to listen, the choice to forgive, the choice to be kind, the choice to stay present. It is not always dramatic. Often it is quiet, ordinary, unseen by the world. But it is in those small, steady choices that great love is built. And so we learn that emotional maturity is not a luxury in relationships, it is a necessity. Without it, even the strongest attraction will fade. Without it, even the deepest passion will falter. But with it, love can endure distances, survive disappointments, and rise stronger after every fall. It is not the grand gestures that sustain love, but the daily grace of maturity. So let us remember, love that lasts is not born from perfection, but from persistence. It is not the absence of storms, but the strength to stand together when they come. Emotional maturity is the key that unlocks that strength. It is the courage to be gentle, the wisdom to be patient, the humility to forgive, and the grace to grow. When we choose maturity, we choose a love that endures beyond passion, beyond pride, beyond time itself. And when we love in that way, we do not simply build relationships, we build legacies of trust, of peace, and of joy that echo long after our voices are silent.